Swedish meatballs, little round spheres of goodness in a nice thick gravy. The first time I had it was at that superstore where everything you buy is in 75 easy steps to build. One time we bought a set of glasses that took us 3 days to put together. But anyway, I'm going to be putting these together. They're absolutely delicious. You can use them for an appetizer for a party, or you can serve them over noodles or mashed potatoes for a nice meal. Be back in a minute. I hope you enjoy this. Welcome back to the Wayward Gourmands. This is Keith. Today, like I said, we're making Swedish meatballs. We're going to go with a traditional recipe today, but you can massage this in any way you want. We're going to be starting off with some ground chuck and some ground pork. You can mix those meats up if you want. Maybe try lamb, or you can use turkey. Anything you want. But I'm going to go with the traditional. We're starting off with 3/4 pound of ground chuck and 1/2 pound of ground pork. And we're going to get that into the bowl to start our process. Now the next ingredient takes a little bit of work ahead of time. What this is this is a small white onion, and I grated it, and then I sautéed it in butter for about 5 minutes just to soften it up and then let it cool down. And the reason you want it to cool down is because you're putting an egg in there and you don't want the egg to cook at all. So you want this to cool down so it's not a really hot temperature. So we're gonna get this small onion grated and sautéed again in the mix. We have 3 slices of white bread and 1/4 cup of milk, and we're going to let this soak. And that's going to soak up all that milk and become a nice filler in there with the rest of the meat. Next ingredient is 1 egg, slightly beaten. Kosher salt. Black pepper. Ground nutmeg, some ground cardamom, and some parsley. Now, once that bread sucks up all of that milk, you want to break it up a little bit. And once it sucks up the milk, it's real easy to break up. You just want to break it up with your fingers, or you can do it with a fork, whatever, it's up to you. And we're going to get that in. And now is the fun part where we get to mush everything together. And you want to make sure that this gets mixed up nice and good, so there's no big clumps of anything in any one spot. I'm going to keep mixing this, and once it's all done, I'm going to show you what the end result looks like. And then we'll start forming the meatballs. All right, so we'll be back in a minute. Okay, as you can see, it's all well blended now. Everything is all evenly mixed. For really the best results, you want to sit this in the refrigerator for like 20 minutes to let it firm up a little bit, because it is a really soft mix. And rolling the meatballs are going to be a little bit of a challenge. The gloves help immensely because it helps with not to stick as much. All right, so you want to get yourself a 2 tablespoon scoop. I only have a 1, so I'm going to take 2 scoops of these to make 1 ball. You want a ball that's about 1 1/4 to 1 1/2 in diameter. So that's what you're looking for right there. And this is going to make a good amount of them. So I'm going to keep rolling these, and we'll be back in a minute once these are all ready, and we're going to start frying these up, and then we get to make the sauce, which is delicious. We'll be back in a couple minutes, and we'll show you how the rest is put together. All right, so I have all the balls all rolled out. It made about 35 of them, but depending on how big the balls are, you can get between 30 and 40 in that area. So it's a good amount for a little over 1 pound of meat. If it's a big party, you just have to scale everything up and it just works out exactly the same. One thing I would recommend though is when you soak the bread, soak it for a good 10-15 minutes so it really breaks it down. If you see, I didn't soak it that long, and you see there's little bits of bread that didn't just all really break up. So I really highly recommend that you do that. Let the bread soak for a while to really let it soak up the milk and break down. I'm going to bring you around here. I'm going to start frying up a couple to see how they look when they're ready. And then we'll start putting the sauce together, which is really the good part. All right, be back in a second. Come on around. All right, we're going to start with our pan on medium-high heat. Add 3 tablespoons of butter. Let it come to a sizzle, kind of like this. And then we're going to start adding our balls in. Now, you don't want to overcrowd the pan. You want to keep like 3/4 of an inch in between each ball, like this. And you're going to let them go for about a minute and a half. You know, give it a good brown on that first side. And then what you're just going to do is you're going to keep rotating them. And you're going to brown them on all sides. Now, if you're going to use the tongs, just be very gentle, because with the bread in there, they're very, very delicate meatballs, and they can break up so until they're, you know, they have that crust all the way around them. So just keep them going, and then once they're browned all the way around, you could start taking them out, put them in a bowl, put them on the side. You're going to warm them through in the gravy later on. All right, so you're going to clean out the pan because you don't want to pick up any of the brown bits or anything into the gravy. So you're going to start with a fresh pan, and we're going to add 3 tablespoons of butter. I see a theme going on here. And you're going to bring it to a nice sizzle before we add the flour in to make the roux. And equal parts flour, we're going to be adding in 3 tablespoons of flour. And we're going to just start whisking that around, and you're going to keep whisking it until all the lumps are gone. You don't want any lumps in there. It's going to be a nice, smooth, silky roux. And you're going to let it cook probably about 5 to 10 minutes until it starts darkening a bit. You don't want it to get too dark, but you'll see there's definitely a change in color. You'll see a slight change in the color. It'll be like a tea with cream color in it as opposed to what you started with. And as long as you cook out that flour so it doesn't have that flour taste, we can move on to the beef stock. And we're going to use 2 cups of beef stock. And when you start whisking it in there, it's going to seem to seize up a little bit, but just keep at it, keep whisking, keep that whisk going really good. And this way it won't wind up lumpy. If you keep whisking, it'll come out to a nice, silky, smooth gravy that you got going on. And then we're going to bring that up to a nice boil. And you're going to let it go and let it thicken up really nice. And what it's going to do is it's going to really cling to the meatballs and give them a nice coating. But we are not done. There's still a couple more ingredients. First is the sour cream. We're going to go with a 1/4 cup of sour cream, full fat sour cream. If you go with the light stuff, you have a higher chance of it curdling on you. So we're going to add that in there, and we're going to whisk that in until it's really fully incorporated. Again, we don't want any lumps in it. Now the next ingredient is lingonberry jelly. This is a Swedish jelly that not everybody has on hand, so you can either omit it or you can replace it with like a raspberry or something like that. The lingonberry has a little sweet, little tart, almost reminds me of like a cranberry-ish really. But we're going to add the 2 tablespoons of that in. We're going to give it a whisk, get that fully incorporated, and then it's just really testing for seasoning, and then it's done. The amount of salt and pepper is really left up to you. It's up to your taste. If you like it a little saltier, a little less saltier, peppery, however you want it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get the balls back in the pool, let them heat through, give them a good coating, and then it's ready to serve.
Oh wow, mama, look at that.
All right, so there we have it. As you can see over to my left here, you can see the meatballs put together. I did it with mashed potatoes. You could do it with egg noodles, which is traditional, or why not rice? You know, mix it up a little bit. For an appetizer for a party or something, you could put together a bunch of these little shooters, little mashed potato, meatball sauce, and a little bit of the lingonberry that we mixed into the sauce. Gives it that little tartness. It's really, really good. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy the video, please hit like and subscribe down below. Turn on alerts, and we'll alert you every time that we put another video up. I want to thank you for coming back to the Wayward Gourmands. As you could see, these Swedish meatballs that you know, the first time I tasted them was at that, you know, that big furniture store. They're a lot easier to put together than, say, a dresser from there. But what I want to do is I want to thank Angela Jackson for her kind words on my chicken croquette recipe, which you can see in the link above. You can follow that if you want to check out some old diner-style chicken croquettes. But I really enjoyed making these. Angela, I hope you have your lingonberry jelly handy because you're going to need it if you want to try these, okay? See you next time on the Wayward Gourmands.